Hey, have you signed up with BLUNET yet? No? Well, let's fix that.
Head over to www.bluenet.co.nz and hit Join Us today. All you need to do is fill in your name, date of birth, phone number, and a few other details. This helps us get you set up faster. We'll also need a photo of your ONT serial number and your modem. Not sure what an ONT is? Don't worry, this is what it looks like, and every house with internet has one. And make sure you have a valid ID and a utility bill or government letter to confirm your address.
When you join BLUNET, you're not just getting fast, stable internet. You're also supporting shows like Tautuana, Breaking Waves, and Sports Salanoa. Your BLUNET subscription helps us bring you more content.
If you sign up this month, you get $10 off your first 3 months. If you have any questions, call 0800 258 638. Join BLUNET today. Malo lava le soifua, ma le langi e mama, whatalo whaatu, ma whala whaatu ia te o tau uma, malo e lei, bula vinaka, kia orana, all of every single greetings. Welcome to our first episode of Breaking Waves. I'm actually so excited to be back. I have had a very restful Christmas and New Year's break. I know it's a bit too late to be talking about New Year's, but I have been well, and I hope all of you have been well too. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to be back and in front of the camera. We have so much preparations of content that we want to deliver this year that we're so excited about. 2025 was a huge year for me. Honestly, I and the team, we were able to achieve so many things that I never in my life thought we'd be able to achieve. I mean, we went on our first Bluwave TV Tautuana USA tour, traveling to over 6 different states, meeting with all of our lovely supporters, our Bluwave TV family. I don't like to call them fams because I believe you guys help us more in other ways, but the hospitality was just overwhelming. These people took us out, gave us the best royal treatment I could ever think of. It was such an amazing experience for myself and our team. We were able to achieve that last year. And while we were in America, I also got the opportunity to attend a California Sports Hall of Fame. Like what? I would have never imagined myself in a room like that. Jesse Sapolu, our good friend, was being inducted, and we got an invitation through Asiata. Thank you so much, Jesse Sapolu, for inviting us. A legend, a man in this game. And to be honest, I'm not the biggest sports guru or sports knowledge person, but it was so amazing to attend this with our sports team. Overwhelming for me, and I actually really enjoyed it. We also had Jesse Sapolu join us here for the Pacifica Rugby Hall of Fame. We got to celebrate a lot of success in the rugby industry with a lot of the players. Honestly, amazing, awesome experience. Got to meet some cool celebs. Also saw my good friend there, Dion. Thank you. That was a really awesome night. We had a lot of fun. And another cool thing that we got to be a part of was contributing to the Pacific Justice signatures. Through our platforms, through Tautuana, we managed to rally thousands and thousands of people to sign the petition for the visa waiver, and we were able to mobilize our communities. So our platforms are very powerful in that way, that we can bring people together and we can make things move. And I also got to attend the swearing in of the 8th government of Samoa with my daughter. I was able to attend with my daughter, and it was a historical event. I got to attend with my family. It was exciting. Honestly, it was the best. I have no words for it. I got to be a part of history. My daughter was there. There's nothing more that I could have asked for. I also got to experience what it was like in the Prime Minister's first press conference. I got to see what the journalism space there looks like with, other journalists and other local media, and that was really fun and exciting. But I got to see what it's like in Samoa. And what I'm saying is 2025 has just been such a blessed year. It was a blessed year, and thank God for his grace and his kindness and his care that we were able to be blessed with all of these experiences. Breaking Waves has originally been a guest-centered show. I usually interview Pacific people in politics, business owners, creatives, and I usually get to sit down, get to know them and how they manage to remain resilient in their journey. However, for 2026, season 3 of Breaking Waves, we are going to take a bit of a different direction. We still will be having interviews. However, you'll be getting more pieces like this. Me in front of the camera, talking to you all about some of the issues that I'm very, very passionate about in our business spaces and also our Pacific spaces here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I just want to shout out to our sponsors. Bluwave, it is the engine room, it is the powerhouse to all of our podcasts, Tautuana, Sports Tala and Breaking Waves. Without Bluwave, we wouldn't have these machines, these fancy gears, these cameras to bring content to you all so that you guys are informed about issues in Samoa and also issues here in New Zealand. Thank you, Bluwave TV. You are a real one. Our other sponsor is BLUNET. If you need internet, guys, hit up BLUNET. They can set you up pretty well. It's Pacific owned, and they'll be able to get you in pretty quickly. Very reasonable prices as well. I'm with BLUNET, so if you need internet services, make sure to check out BLUNET. I would also like to thank Eveni Pacific. Thank you, Eveni Pacific. Household name brand, been around for a long time. They're always collaborating with Samoan businesses, and I love it. I love it when I see our Pacific businesses working with each other, and I'm so thankful for them for sponsoring the show, sponsoring our other shows. And yeah, thank you to our sponsors. If you're watching this, please, I ask for one favor. If there's one thing that you could do for me, please like, follow, and subscribe to our content, whether you're watching from YouTube, whether you're watching from Facebook, or wherever you're watching this. Like our content, follow, subscribe. That is the one thing that I'm asking for, and it helps us as a small business so much to keep the power on, to keep the water on. Petrol is pretty expensive these days, so yeah, help us out. Thank you so. Thank you so much. Shout out to all our viewers. Last year, an article was released by Stuff in December titled "Left in the Dark. Businesses say the trust meant to back them shut them out instead." Yes, that is my head on the article. I sent this story to speak up about many of the unfair and unjust treatments many of us in the Pacific business community were facing. We were being treated very unfairly, disrespectfully. They excluded us from events. They just made it so hard for us to engage with them, whether that was through inconsistent communications, just slow and delayed procedures, or just having to continuously follow up on very small issues that took months, literally months to resolve. In this article, me and Afele shared our experiences with Stuff Media about how unprofessional the trust has been in dealing with the exact people that they get publicly funded to serve. In early 2022, health and safety consultant Afele began working with the Pacific Business Trust. He described this opportunity as very deeply meaningful and a beautiful thing because it allowed him to work closely with Pacific-owned businesses to help keep their workers safe, And, I love it. I love it when small business owners, very loko mama, good intention, come in wanting to help out. At the time, the program manager was John Faitala, and he was someone Afele said genuinely wanted to see him succeed. Through that relationship, he began receiving a steady stream of contracts, delivering health and safety services to Pacific businesses at a grassroots level. However, when John Faitala left mid-2023, Afele says the contract stopped and communication with the trust ceased. After 9 months without no explanation why they weren't communicating with him or why they stopped his contracts, Afele decided to arrange a meeting with the trust at their Penrose office. He says that he was told his services were suspended because a complaint had been made against him alleging that he had to get family members involved and have the trust pay for them, an accusation which Afele denied. The reason the trust gave for suspending his services was basically a conflict of interest, but this tells us something about the principle the trust claims to operate under, that people shouldn't use these services to benefit close personal connections. In other words, it's behavior that's not looked upon favorably. The trust doesn't support it. Afele said that he wasn't even told who the complainant was, what even the full allegations were, or whether any investigation had taken place. And during the same meeting, he said that he was then told his name's been cleared and they were going to offer him more contracts. My questions are, as a publicly funded organization, why was there no mediation process for Afele? Why was Afele not given a fair chance to explain himself and defend himself before they made the decision to not engage with him? What fair processes does the trust actually have in place to protect their service providers or stakeholders? The experience left Afele very, very, very disappointed. He said it was very unprofessional, and he hasn't had a contract since. But the most disappointing thing for him is that he missed out on the opportunity to help Pacific businesses at a grassroots level. Before we go deeper into some more of these experiences, let me briefly just explain to you all what the Pacific Business Trust is. And this information is directly from their website. The Pacific Business Trust describes itself as the Economic Development Agency of Aotearoa, New Zealand. According to its website, its mission is to empower Pacific-owned businesses and maximize economic performance. It supports more than 2,000 active Pacific-owned businesses that collectively generate over $1 billion in revenue. The Trust also states it provides free and confidential programs designed to empower and accelerate Pacific businesses, while partnering with organizations to build Pacific capability and resilience. I personally first engaged with the Pacific Business Trust in 2021. I was 26 years old. I was absolutely obsessed with business. I was in this mode where I just wanted to learn. I wanted to be connected to people. I needed to network. I wanted to reach out to resources. I was hungry. So when I first engaged with Pacific Business Trust, I saw an ad that came up on Facebook. It was a sponsored ad, and they were advertising a course called Hatch. Hatch Pacific is for young entrepreneurs. It's tailored to support entrepreneurs looking to grow through its foundation and startup programs. Just for some context, I'm a South Auckland girl, born and raised in Mangele 275. And I'm a first generation migrant. My parents came here literally on the year I was born, 1994. Typical story, we lived in a 3-bedroom state house. All was well. Family came in and out all the time. These kind of opportunities for someone like me is huge. To be honest, I was looking at it as my gateway to business success. I was looking at it as like, wow, I have a place that I can go to that exists. I was excited. I was like, man, this is going to be the start to something great. I got accepted into the program. I signed up, got accepted, and it was a 12-week program where they taught us accounting skills, finance skills. They helped us create pitches. They helped us create a business plan. We got to visit massive corporations such as PwC, the Big Four, and KPMG. We got to meet with industry leaders. I got to meet millionaires. We went to their mansions. We got to talk about all of the challenges that they face in business. We all that whole cohort got a free iPad. To that day, that iPad is so useful for me, and I still use it for my work. That's the kind of assistance that I was receiving from the trust through their Hatch program. So after this program finished, I was super stoked. I was happy. I went to the Pacific Business Trust again. I'm like, hey guys, how can you help me now? And they said, well, we can help you with needs that you have at Bluwave. So for example, if there's a marketing or sales need that needs to be addressed in your business, we can give you some funds to get a consultant or to get some assistance. And I was like, oh, nice. Yeah, there's several areas where we need help. They also gave me another option, and that was to apply as a service provider. And I was like, what does a service provider mean? And they guided me and they mentored me through that process. And they said, well, you can come on as a service provider, and all the businesses who approach us for help, you will help deliver services for them. And I was like, okay, cool. That sounds better. Actually, I'd like to work for the money. That would be a good experience for our Bluwave team as well. At the time, Bluwave was offering services in videography, photography, website design, and digital marketing. So there were areas that we could help. So I signed up as a service provider. And yeah, everything was well. But before I go further, I want to explain how the business trust actually receives funding in the first place, because it's important people understand where this money comes from. For everyone in New Zealand watching this, if you are an electrician, a nurse, a teacher, a warehouser, or if you're on the benefit, you pay tax. A portion of your income is taken by the government through the tax system. The money goes into the government's public funds. From there, the government allocates some of that funding to different ministries. One of those ministries is the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, whose role is to support and empower Pacific communities across New Zealand. From there, the government allocates some of that funding to different ministries. One of those is, to different organizations and trusts that they feel are best positioned to deliver services to Pacific people. They assess who they believe, according to their standards, can do the work effectively and who can actually help Pacific businesses grow and succeed. For many years, the ministry decided that the Pacific Business Trust was one of those trusted organizations. They trusted them with public funding to carry out that mission. For the trust has received millions and millions and millions for the last 40 years. Once the Pacific Business Trust receives that funding, they operate what's called a service provider network, which is where Bluwave was at, where Bluwave was at with the Pacific Business Trust. As when we were a service provider, we were getting job collaborations, we were getting contracts. The process at the time was awesome. The program manager at the time, you know who you are, he guided me properly. If I needed help, the help was almost given instantly. It was so easy to access information, to work through their portal. We were guided through very well. However, just like Awhile, when the CEO changed, the change of CEO, things just started changing. When I actually first heard of the new CEO change, I was actually excited to get to meet Mary Lose. She is also the current CEO, and share with her our work that we were doing in our space, and also my relationship that I previously already built with Pacific Business Trust. You know, new CEO comes in, it's normal. You go in, hey, hi, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I do. And I went to a Pacific business meeting where Mary Lose was, and we happened to have an amazing conversation. But after this engagement, it was just ridiculously hard for me to get clarity around our relationship with the trust as a service provider. That's me there. That's me there. I was pretty young there, full of fire and just hungry to get, jobs and get things moving. Yeah, so I went to this Pacific business meeting, and it was so hard for us after it just to get any sort of status on what we were as a service provider. For me personally, this was disappointing because, like I said, I was a young entrepreneur. I felt like I worked so hard to build this relationship, and then one change of the CEO, it just all went in the bin. It also affected our business because they were delaying giving us information about our status. It actually made it harder for us to forecast our finances, and that's a lot in regards to paying our staff members. So they made it hard for us as a business as well. And at that time, I was upset. I was a bit frustrated. But after speaking with close, trusted relatives, after speaking with my boss, I let it go. I was like, you know what? I'm going to let it go. Forgive, forget. There are many fish in the sea that we can go and find and get money from. And we have. I mean, it's been, 3 years later? We found a lot of other opportunities. However, throughout these years, I've just had so many people come to me expressing clear disappointment in dealing with the trust. And they actually asked me if I knew any other places they could go to get assistance. And my heart really hurts for these people. It kind of makes me relive my moments with the trust, and I felt for them. I'm very sensitive to these kinds of situations. So many people back to back coming and just saying, we're not impressed. We need help. I don't know where to send them. I don't know who to go to. After these experiences, another interesting thing that I took a note of during this time was this. An article released by Pacific Media Network, treated like garbage, staff to get $52K payout for unjustified dismissal. A serious employment dispute has emerged involving the Pacific Island Business Trust, raising questions about how organizations that support Pacific businesses treated 2 of its own staff members. The issue centers around the dismissal of 2 long-serving employees, John Faitala, the organization's general manager, and Vahano Vea, its corporate services manager. Both were made redundant in June 2023 during a restructuring process following the appointment of a new CEO. However, what should have been a standard restructuring quickly became very controversial. Both employees say the process felt rushed and confusing. They asked for more information about the restructure, requested time to respond, and even expressed interest in applying for new roles within the organization. But according to evidence later presented, their questions were never properly answered, and their feedback was not meaningfully considered. Instead, both employees were called into meetings on the same day, and later that day received termination letters by email. They say they were dismissed without a proper farewell, without references, and without a clear explanation of why their jobs had been selected for redundancy. The experience took a heavy toll. Faitala described the process as brutal, saying it affected his health and family life. Vea reported anxiety, embarrassment, and stress-related migraines following the dismissal. The case eventually went before the Employment Relations Authority, the ERA, which examined whether the trust had followed proper employment procedures. The authority ruled that while the organization may have had legitimate reasons to restructure, it failed to meet its legal obligations during the process. It found that the trust did not properly consult with the employees, failed to provide sufficient information, and did not seriously consider redeploying them into other roles. Because of these failures, the authority then determined the dismissals were unjustified. As a result, PBT has now been ordered to pay the 2 former employees more than $52,000 in compensation, including payments for lost wages, lost benefits, and $25,000 each for humiliation and emotional distress. The case is now being seen as a reminder that even organizations that promote support for Pacific communities must still ensure that they follow fair processes and employment law when dealing with their own people. There's honestly a level of hypocrisy that I just can't ignore. The Pacific Business Trust tells the public that it exists to help thrive, Pacific people thrive in businesses. Its whole identity is built around community uplift, economic empowerment, and supporting Pacific entrepreneurs. But then you look at how 2 of its own long-serving staff members were treated. The way they describe it, they were treated like garbage, like lapisi. If these decisions were made under the leadership of the current CEO, Mary Lose, then it's not surprising as to why many of us in the community have had trash experiences with the trust. Restructuring itself is not unusual, to be honest. Organizations change leaderships all the time, priorities shift, roles revolve all the time. That happens everywhere. But restructuring is never an excuse to discard people without dignity or without respect. It just shows incompetence and a lack of cultural care and values. There is a clear gap between the fancy language that the trusts use and their behavior towards many of us in the Pacific business space. Too often, far too often, organizations wrap themselves in the language of community, culture, and Pacific values, but when it comes to making difficult decisions in what's right, those values just suddenly disappear. All of a sudden, faʻasoa doesn't exist. And even after everything, CEO Mary Lose, she returned back to her taxpayer-funded office as if nothing happened, no meaningful public transparency or accountability. My heart really goes out to John and Vea, who were likely left exhausted by the legal process simply for asking to be treated fairly and with basic respect. It's the bare minimum for a Pacific organization. They weren't asking to be exalted. Things you would assume exist with Pacific organizations that claim to live by Pacific values. I believe Pacific communities deserve institutions that actually maybe live by the values that they speak about, not just perform, when it's convenient. So crazy. I went onto their Facebook, had a look through their posts, and I saw some very interesting Pacific proverbs that they love to use. This one first here. E sili le ta'i na ilo le tapuai. The collective strength and prayers of all is a powerful foundation and support system for the family. It is not us that, for the family. I, first of all, don't think that's actually what it means. It's not us that leads, it's the people who support, the community. I don't think they're doing that at all. Another quote that they used, he waka eke noa. We're all in this together. Are we though? Are we? Is that why PBT ghosted Afele for 9 months without giving him a proper reason as to why they suspended his contracts? Kaukia. My favorite one. Everyone loves to use this in their governance speeches. O le ala I le pule o le tautua. The road to leadership is through service. True leaders serve and support the community before rising up to leadership positions. I think someone actually needs to send this to CEO Mary Lose. This is going to be profound philosophical knowledge for her. These are words that we often hear in Pacific leadership spaces. Yet, when those values are tested in practice, sometimes what we see is like the complete opposite. And that raises a difficult question. Is the trust receiving millions in public funding because it genuinely serves Pacific communities? Or because over the years it's just become very good at presenting itself that way? Something else stood out to me. I came across another Herald article published on the 4th of February 2024. This is literally not long before John and Vea spoke up about their experience and the 52K that was owed to them. The New Zealand Herald conveniently ran a feature on CEO Mary Lose, essentially a full-length biography celebrating her life story. This was a premium article too. To be honest, I had to pay $6 and I want my $6 back. But this article was an inspirational journey about Mary Lose, the youngest of 9 children, the Shortland Street acting days, the journalism career, the communications expertise, the MBA, and ultimately her rise to the boardroom leading a Pacific institution. The article paints Mary as an extraordinary leader, grounded in humility, discipline, resilience, and her former board chair, Paul Reti Manu, confidently declared that from the moment the panel interviewed her, they knew she was the person for the job, and she was knocking it out of the park already. It's all very impressive, to be honest. I'm not going to lie, it is impressive. I'm not like a hater for no reason. So while, the Herald is publishing this to the public and a lot of people are being introduced to Mary at this inspirational Mary Lose origin story, 2 of her former employees were dealing with the consequences of a restructuring that left them jobless and in emotional distress. The timeliness of these articles is crazy. It's funny. In my personal opinion, this is a personal opinion, this looks like a typical PR move to cover up mistakes. Should have just genuinely apologized. It's so easy, you know? And just doing things the proper way. Late last year, I had a close business colleague explain to me how they were being, once again, unfairly treated by the Pacific Business Trust. And I have a rule. The first time, I'm gonna forgive and forget, let it go. The second time I hear that you're doing something, anyone or an organization is doing something fishy, I'm gonna pay attention, and I'm now watching your patterns. The third time, that's when I commit to doing something about it. And after hearing story after story about Pacific business owners, the same kinds of experiences, the same kinds of frustrations, I started asking myself a bigger question. How can I bring these issues to the attention of people who actually have the power to change things? The ministers, the decision makers, the people sitting in offices who are supposed to be responsible for how these systems operate. Last year, I posted a video addressing the exact issues I'm discussing on this podcast today. If you want to find it, you can go to my Facebook, scroll down a little bit, you'll see it. It's got the title with the PMN article as a thumbnail. I spoke about all the unfairness that was experienced, and I wasn't trying to be aggressive, and I wasn't trying to dominate the conversation. I was very deliberate about how I approached it. I'm a social media girl. I've been working in social media for like the last 5 years. I know how to use, our platforms. I know how platforms work. I know how to use them to get issues in front of very important people. Before that video went out, the groundwork had already been done. I had already drafted a letter that was supported by more than 50 Pacific business owners and collectives. I had already prepared correspondence to the Ministry for Pacific Peoples and also to the Honourable Shane Reti. So it wasn't random. It wasn't impulsive. It was organized. But before we get into those details, we're going to go into a short break.
Hey, have you signed up with BLUNET yet? No? Well, let's fix that.
Head over to www.blunet.co.nz and hit Join Us today. All you need to do is fill in your name, date of birth, phone number, and a few other details. This helps us get you set up faster. We'll also need a photo of your ONT serial number and your modem. Not sure what an ONT is? Don't worry, this is what it looks like, and every house with internet has one. And make sure you have a valid ID and a utility bill or government letter to confirm your address.
When you join BLUNET, you're not just getting fast, stable internet. You're also supporting shows like Tautuana, Breaking Waves, and Sports Salanoa. Your BLUNET subscription helps us bring you more content.
If you sign up this month, you get $10 off your first 3 months. If you have any questions, call 0800 258 638. Join BLUNET today. On the 10th of October, I decided to address a letter to the board of the Pacific Business Trust and to take all the concerns from all these years that the community had to the trust. I'm going to read that letter with you all because I think it's very important. Talofa, my name is Hannah and I am the head of sales and marketing at Bluwave Galumoana Limited, a Pacific-owned media company based in Manukau. I am writing to express serious concerns regarding the leadership and governance of the Pacific Business Trust, PBT, particularly in relation to the continued employment of CEO Mary Lose. These concerns are not only based on our company's direct experiences, but are also shared by a growing number of Pacific business owners who have encountered similar challenges when engaging with your organization. As a publicly funded agency entrusted with supporting Pacific economic development in New Zealand, PBT plays a crucial role in the growth and well-being of our communities. However, there is a growing perception, backed by real experiences, that the current leadership has failed to uphold the values of transparency, fairness, and professionalism expected of an entity in such a position of trust. It is widely known within the Pacific business community that the trust has incurred over $50,000 in legal costs related to employment disputes under the current CEO. These matters have also caused significant emotional harm to former staff, many of whom were dismissed under questionable circumstances. Yet despite these serious concerns, there has been no visible accountability or explanation from the board as to why Ms. Lose remains in her role. Our company has also experienced unprofessional and inconsistent engagement with PBT. After previously collaborating with the trust, we were led to believe that we would continue as a service provider. However, we were subjected to months of delays, a lack of clear communication, and sudden requests to retake cultural competency assessments without justification. Our experience reflects a broader issue within the organization, as we have since spoken with several other Pacific business owners who report similar treatment, unreturned communications, shifting criteria, exclusionary practices, and a general lack of inclusiveness. We want to make it clear, this is not a personal attack, nor is our business seeking to profit from PBT. Our concern is grounded in the belief that Pacific businesses, especially smaller or emerging ones, deserve access to an organization that is well-led, fair, and accountable. Right now, many of us feel excluded from opportunities that were created to support our development. If the PBT board is unable or unwilling to uphold good governance and ensure that leadership is held to a high standard, we must question whether the trust is the right entity to continue receiving the majority of public funding for Pacific business services in New Zealand. We respectfully request direct answers to the following questions. What steps has the board taken to address the employment disputes and legal costs incurred under current CEO's leadership? Why has there been no public communication or transparency around these matters? What safeguards are in place to ensure that Pacific businesses are engaged fairly, transparently, and without bias? How is the board measuring and reviewing the CEO's performance and accountability? We raise these concerns on behalf of not only ourselves, but a wider network of Pacific business owners who have been impacted by the current culture and leadership of PBT. Our goal is not to divide, but to push for the kind of leadership and governance that truly reflects the values of our community and the responsibilities tied to public funding. Due to the lack of commitment and support from PBT, we don't trust that we will be addressed with care or honesty. So this letter will also be publicly published through other media organizations we are working alongside to protect the integrity of ourselves and other business owners who are faced similar mistreatment. We hope to receive a timely response or a public statement addressing these issues. Whawhetaitere lava for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Hannah Schmidt. So, I also sent this letter to the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, which they had acknowledged. But after sending this letter, this is the response from the Pacific Business Trust. On the 13th of October, CEO Mary Lose's legal team responded back. They didn't address it to me, they addressed it to my boss. So they were like, don't want to send it to her, let's send it straight to the person who owns the company. Addressed to Fumaono Martin and I, from the Pacific Business Trust. We act for Pacific Business Trust, PBT. Our client today has received a copy of a letter sent by one of your employees, Hannah Schmidt. The letter is on company letterhead and written in her official capacity as head of sales and marketing. The letter contains a number of defamatory statements about PBT's chief executive, Mary Lose, It also contains a number of false and damaging statements about PBT. In this letter, Ms. Schmidt asks PBT to respond to a series of questions and informs our client for her intention to publish her allegations more widely. Our client understands this letter has already been provided to the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, and Ms. Schmidt has published the same or similar claims on her personal social media platforms. PBT is deeply concerned at this and about the damage these false accusations could have on both Ms. Lose and the Trust. PBT does not intend to respond to Ms. Schmidt directly. We draw this to your attention, however, and request that your employee desists immediately. So yeah, I got my first cease and desist legal letter from Mary Lose. I was asking questions, man. I don't know why she got to send me legal letters for. I don't know if Mary realizes this, but sending legal threats instead of having a conversation is such a Karen move. Like, it's basically the modern version of saying, I've got money, you don't have money, I've got money, and I can bully you into silence. I'm a very transparent person. What you see is what you get. Bluwave survives off our own sweat, off our own hard work. We're a small business that works hard for everything that we have. We're not hiding behind millions of taxpayers' dollars, threatening other small businesses just for asking very valid questions. I honestly don't care that you can afford a lawyer. I kind of feel sorry that you can barely defend yourself. Instead of trying to intimidate people, why not just pick up the phone and come into our office? We'll have a coffee and talk about things like adults maybe. That would have been the simplest way to deal with it. But time and time again, that opportunity was never taken. And the truth is, we're not using taxpayers' money to position ourselves as so-called community heroes. This happens a lot in funding spaces, though. This is not a unique experience to PBT. And trust me when I say this, there are plenty of people doing exactly this, but I'm going to save that for another episode because today we'll focus on PBT. I also sent this information to several Pacific members of Parliament. Many of them never replied, which, to be honest, I found just incredibly frustrating. Carmel Sepuloni, I reached out to her. She's the spokesperson for Pacific People. She did initially respond and said that she wasn't able to assist. I replied back to her and I go, hey, how come? Is there a reason why you can't help me in this? And then she responded with this. I want to read this email with you guys. Sorry, could we enlarge that, Carl, if that's okay? Make that bigger. Okay, thank you for your email. As you have stated, you have started the process with the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, who best represents to respond to your concerns. Their office, in Honourable Carmel's capacity, I need to find this letter 1 second, sorry. This is the letter. Have a read of this letter. So I sent this to Carmel, and she came back and she said that I had to sign, and then she would later go and talk to MPP about it and also to the minister. But what I'm frustrated about is that, you know, our platform is often being approached by politicians, including Carmel, when they want to reach Pacific communities, when they want visibility, they want their work promoted. But when those same communities raise the same concerns about public money, governance, and accountability, suddenly the urgency disappears. If I really unpacked everything right now, this episode would honestly turn into like a 3-hour diss track, but we're not doing that today. We're going to stay focused and productive. Regardless of Mary Lose's legal threats, I reached out to several major media outlets anyways to try and get the story investigated. I contacted Stuff, Radio New Zealand, Pacific Media Network, and also the New Zealand Herald. Out of all of them, only one organization was willing to take it seriously, and I thank you Stuff Media for getting back and for putting us through an awesome process. Pacific Media Network, they delayed responding. Initially, I did give them the story, gave them updates, but for some reason it just wasn't published, and frustrating because, you know, they're also publicly funded. And RNZ as well, same thing happened. Didn't come back to me, same story. It was frustrating, particularly when many of these organizations are also publicly funded. When community voices are trying to raise legitimate concerns, you would expect some level of engagement, but it was disappointing. Either way, personally, these were just small roadblocks. On the 4th of November, Shane Reti announces a board overhaul. Pacific People's Minister Dr. Shane Reti has announced new appointments to the Pacific Business Trust Board and the Centre for Pacific Languages Board. Ulu Mata'otua Saulaulau Aiono has now been appointed chair of the Pacific Business Trust Board for a 3-year term. Nora Swan and Lanuola Moe Pen have also been appointed to the board. Eli Tangi and Dr. Ray Si'ilata have been reappointed as board members of the Centre of Pacific Language, while Dr. Bolu Apolo Taito has been appointed as a new member. The Pacific Business Trust and the Centre for Pacific Languages represent two pillars of Pacific progress, one driving economic growth and entrepreneurship, the other safeguarding language and cultural identity, which in turn builds confidence and enhances employment, says Dr. Reti. Ulu is a Samoan Kiwi and officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit, bringing a unique blend of business acumen, community leadership, and Pacific regional insight. Nora Swan, a creative entrepreneur who established the Pacific Fusion Fashion Show, and Lanuola Moe Pen, a governance leader in early childhood education, also brings strong community connections and strategic capability to the board. I also want to thank outgoing chair Paul Reti Manu, who's helped strengthen the trust strategic direction over the last few years. I want you guys to take a note of Shane Reti thanking Paul Reti Manu for his contributions. On the same day that the minister has put in a new chair to the Pacific Business Trust Board, guess who sends me a letter? Yeah, Mary Loss's legal team. They send me a second legal letter on the same day a new board chair was announced. Let me read this one for you guys. Pacific Business Trust, defamation. We last wrote to you on the 13th of October, 2025. Our letter of that date identified that our client, Pacific Business Trust, has received a letter from one of your employees, Hannah Schmidt. The letter, written on Bluwave Galumoana letterhead, contains defamatory statements about PBT. We ask that your employee immediately desist from defaming our client. We now write you a second time to record that Ms. Schmidt also published video statements on 8th of October 2025 on Instagram and Facebook. Both publications contain defamatory statements about PBT and PBT's chief executive, Mary Losse. The statement about Ms. Losse are false, offensive, and highly damaging to her reputation, and both remain online and accessible. We have received no response to our first letter because we didn't reply. We were just like, let it go. We now put you on notice. If Ms. Schmidt's defamatory videos are not taken down by close of business Wednesday, 5th of November 2025, we are instructed to begin drafting legal proceedings. Please confirm in writing that the appropriate steps have been taken. So we decided to also get our own legal advice. Our lawyer asked me straight up, she was like, why did you post the video in the first place? And I was like, well, it was to raise awareness. It was to start conversations. It was for me to speak up about my experience and mobilize our community. She then said, well, has the video done that? I go, yep, it's done that. Does it need to stay up? And I said, not really, because honestly at that stage, our boss, Fuimaono, and I had already arranged a meeting to meet with Ulu at Melba. Ulu is the new chairman. Her advice was very clear. We could avoid further legal threats if we took the video down. And to be real, it was a strategic decision. I was never trying to fight Mary in court. I don't want to fight her in court. That's a waste of time. I don't want to be sitting in court, wasting my time on waste of time issues. I just wanted my message to reach the right people. Let's call it what it is. These two legal letters. These are just fear tactics, intimidation. It's so disappointing that this is the methods that they use, using legal pressure while operating behind a publicly funded trust and directing it to a small business. That does not sit right with me. Shortly after, me and my boss got to meet with Ulu, the new chairman at Melba and Manukau, and we'll get into the details of that right after this break. We'll be right back.
Hey, Have you signed up with BLUNET yet? No? Well, let's fix that.
Head over to www.blunet.co.nz and hit Join Us today. All you need to do is fill in your name, date of birth, phone number, and a few other details. This helps us get you set up faster. We'll also need a photo of your ONT serial number and your modem. Not sure what an ONT is? Don't worry, this is what it looks like, and every house with internet has one. And make sure you have a valid ID and a utility bill or government letter to confirm your address.
When you join BLUNET, you're not just getting fast, stable internet. You're also supporting shows like Tautuana, Breaking Waves, and Sports Salanoa. Your BLUNET subscription helps us bring you more content.
If you sign up this month, you get $10 off your first 3 months. If you have any questions, call 0800 258 638. Join BLUNET today. Welcome back. Honestly, the funniest thing about meeting with Ulu is that I actually didn't have to go out of my way to get Ulu. Our boss, Fuimono Martin, had already arranged a meeting with Ulu, and we were actually going to meet him to talk about business, ways that we could collaborate or maybe restart our relationship with the trust again. But we went to Melbourne that morning and we met up with Ulu, and we got to see the type of person he was, what his vision was for the trust. We talked about business, we talked about our spaces, what we do here at Bluwave, and what he's planning to do with the trust. And after, our conversations, we had some tea, I shared with him the letter that I had wrote the trust. And I go, did you know that I sent this letter to your board, addressing to your board? And did you know that your CEO sent me 2 letters legally threatening me to remain silent? Ulu had no idea. He had no idea that Mary Losse, his CEO, was sending out these letters. And he confirmed with me that he would take care of it and he would follow up and see where things are going. It's concerning for me that she's not sharing anything that the community is giving to her with her board members. Those are our concerns. After this meeting with Ulu, I found some very interesting interactions on LinkedIn. This status was posted on the Pacific Business Trust's LinkedIn page. I'm going to read this with you. PBT's commitment. We will distribute at least 75% of the regional fund. Why at least 75%? Our new chairman, Dr. Ulumatootua Aiono, wants us to distribute 100%. However, he's only been on the job now for 2 weeks, and 100%, it's not going to happen. Why not give it all now? The government funding, we will be able to tell you shortly how much it is once we receive it. We can't just give it out without accountability. Yes, we have to be responsive and give effect to policies and decisions faster. Because so many of New Zealand's Pasifika businesses need help, but we also have to be responsible. So we have to spend some of the money to identify which Pasifika businesses qualify for this funding. The government requires us to measure the outcomes from the businesses who get money from this fund. That will take a bit of money too. Don't worry. Don't take our word for it. We will distribute more than 75%, if at all possible. You will see the numbers, just not 100%. We don't promise to make you happy, but we do promise to get the fund money out. Safely and responsibly. And the rest is basically jargon that goes into detail on timelines on when the funds will be released. This is such an interesting post because the tone towards the chairman is just so dismissive, you know? She says, our new chairman, Dr. Ulumatautua Iono, wants us to distribute 100%. However, he's only been in the job now for 2 weeks, and 100%, not gonna happen. It's a strange way for an organization to refer to its own chairman. In my opinion, this framing undermines his authority by suggesting that his position is naive or uninformed or inexperienced. Secondly, the statement bluntly dismisses the goal. 100% is not going to happen. Instead of explaining maybe the operational constraints or the language, the language frames the chairman's position as just unrealistic. In professional governance communications, you would normally see something more aligned, such as, you know, maybe while the chairman has expressed this, you know, we found this. Instead, this statement just reads more like an internal disagreement. It's giving like drama, it's giving internal tension, it's giving lack of unified leadership messaging and a communications approach that is just so unusually informal. You know, it's so informal. Look at the language being used. Don't worry. Don't take our word for it. We don't promise to just make you happy. You know as much as us. Maybe they were trying to seem more approachable, but this kind of language just creates so many issues because it downplays the seriousness of managing public funds. It replaces structured explanation with reassurance. It relies on trust rather than evidence. For an organization managing government funding, stakeholders typically expect a tone that communicates rigor, structure, accountability. This just sounds like internal drama. But my favorite part, to be honest, is the post at the end. E so'o lefau I lefau, stronger together. There they go again, using those specific proverbs and quotes to justify their decision making. Another funny thing happened on LinkedIn. Ulu shares this post. Let's read it together. It was posted on the 28th of November. And it reads, today's my 20th day in the Pacific Business Trust. An average of 5 people a day have contacted me and been to see me at the Melbourne Manukau Cafe. Complaints about PBT, lack of response from PBT, near zero effectiveness in PBT, year after year after year. Not one good thing about PBT. So, in the new dawn at PBT, the new PBT board and CEO Mary Lose take nothing for granted. Yesterday, New Zealand Treasury Secretary Mr. Lane Rennie, CNZM, talked about the rational approach to cause economic and social transformation in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Mr. Rennie's explanation and hypothesis was excellent. They will evaporate like the best laid plans as soon as they get in the boxing ring of reality. Poof. At PBT, the same cause and effect rockets us and dumps us as we get our thinking and data corrected about the regional fund with the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, delegated to us earlier this year. Here is our data. On Wednesday, 26th of November, PBT received from the MPP the regional fund money. Following the government's May budget, the fund was allocated to PBT from MPP. Thank you, MPP. You've made the day for us in the first meeting of our new PBT board 2 days ago on Wednesday. The regional fund of $800,000 is the balance remaining from $1.5 million of MPP funding for the year ending the 30th of June 2026. For what? To help Pacifica businesses in New Zealand. From Monday the 1st of December 2025, this email address will be up regionalfund@pacificbusinesses.co.nz to receive funding applications. Before the regional fund was paid to PBT, MPP made a final payment of $500,000 to the 11 Pacific business villages. Their contracts ended on the 30th of June 2025. The sum was calculated using each PBV's prior contract's total value for one single quarter. About $200,000 has been spent on analysis and a review of PVV business outcomes to date. Man, $200,000 on a review and a report is crazy. Is that the normal cost to get? I don't know if it's the normal cost, but that's crazy. That leaves $800,000 for the rest of the year to 30th of June 2026. PBT will distribute 100% of the $800,000 directly to Pacifica businesses. 2 weeks ago, CEO Mary told me we have costs to distribute this money, so we should be careful and distribute 75%. But our new board says 100. Well done, CEO Mary Lose, for absorbing the costs somehow. CEO Mary is not hiring more staff to manage or allocate this fund money, not this year, not any year with our new board. PBT is now an economic development agency, so it will deal directly with providers and businesses. Now it's time to start the work of the new season. 2 weeks into the job, Ulu's already trying to clean up a big mess, and his own post makes one thing very clear to me. This didn't start with him. He admits people have been complaining about PBT with no results and nothing good to say. It's not a small issue, to be honest. That's a pattern and a reflection of $1 million funded system that I don't know if it still works for our community. He also exposes something important about Mary Lose's leadership. Mary originally said the trust was to distribute only 75% of the funding because of cost. The board stepped in and said, nope, 100% should go straight back to businesses. I don't know if she regrets her earlier posts making the new chairman look like he didn't know what he was doing and undermining his position. No matter how hard you try to hide it, the unprofessionalism is just so visible. It's not only me, there's so many others in the business community who are picking up on it. So let's call it what it is. Her plan was to hold money back for the trust. The board had to override her decision. Now she's being thanked for absorbing the costs. She's being corrected in real time. That's what's happening publicly as well. In short, the status is things weren't working and they weren't working under her. You can't fix that with PR announcements or nice words. People can see clearly what's actually happening. I ended up meeting Mary Lose at the Pacific Business Trust stakeholders meeting that happened just about 3 weeks ago. And I want to tell you guys about how that went. I attended the Pacific Business Trust stakeholders meeting on my own. As I went around the room, I spent time talking with a lot of different people in the business community, including someone who actually used to work here at Bluwave. And while we were mid-conversation, Mary noticed. She came over. She interrupted. It was so awkward. She interrupted us. It was so awkward. She didn't acknowledge the conversation. And she put her hand down. She goes, "Hi, I'm Mary." And then I put my hand down. I was like, "Hi, I'm Hannah." And then she was like, "Welcome. Enjoy." And then she took off. For someone whose legal team had just sent letters threatening court action for defamation, it was a strange interaction. Very surface level, very performative, and let's be real, it's not a private setting. There were many other business leaders there. It was a room full of Pacific businesses, leaders and networks. People were watching. Many already know or knew about the video that I had posted on Facebook. Many also knew about the letters that I was writing to the ministry and also to the minister. But in these spaces, who you speak to, how you carry yourself, it all gets read. People are watching. You know who you talk to, who you're connected to. To me, it felt like she just came over to be seen, to show that she wasn't avoiding me, but her energy didn't match that. This is just my personal opinion. It didn't feel genuine. What stood out even more was that she wasn't formally introduced as the CEO at the stakeholders meeting. The session was actually led by the chairman, Ulu, and for those familiar with governance spaces, that's not a small detail. It raises questions about positioning, confidence in leadership, and how things are actually being run behind the scenes. I recently requested for the 2025 financial review from the Pacific Business Trust, and we found some really interesting information about how the trust has been using their public funds. We'll be back to share that with you right after this break.
Hey, have you signed up with BLUNET yet? No? Well, let's fix that.
Head over to www.blunet.co.nz and hit Join Us today. All you need to do is fill in your name, date of birth, phone number, and a few other details. This helps us get you set up faster. We'll also need a photo of your ONT serial number and your modem. Not sure what an ONT is? Don't worry, this is what it looks like, and every house with internet has one. And make sure you have a valid ID and a utility bill or government letter to confirm your address.
When you join BLUNET, you're not just getting fast, stable internet. You're also supporting shows like Tautuana, Breaking Waves, and Sports Salanoa. Your BLUNET subscription helps us bring you more content.
If you sign up this month, you get $10 off your first 3 months. If you have any questions, call 0800 258 638. Join BLUNET today. I received the PBT 2025 financial review from their team. I requested that and I found some pretty interesting information, especially on related party transactions. Related party transactions are deals or financial arrangements between an organization and people or entities that are closely connected to it. This can include board members, executives like CEO, family members of those people, companies that they own or are involved in. I'm going to read with you guys this section. Key management personnel remuneration. The trust classifies its key management personnel into one of two classes: members of the governing body. Here are the businesses and here are the transactions that were made. Business South Incorporated. Lloyd Maole is a business navigator of the company. Lloyd is also a board member of the trust. As at balance date, the trust paid $3,435 to Business South Incorporated. In 2024, they received $276. Manaaki Management Limited, Paul Retimanu is the director of the company. Paul is also a chairman of the board of the trust. As at balance date, the trust paid $39,528 for various services to Manaaki Management Limited. In 2024, he received $25,138. Hospitality New Zealand, Paul Retimanu is the president of the organization. Paul is also a chairman of the board of the trust. As at balance the date, the trust paid $0 in 2025 to Hospitality New Zealand. In 2024, it paid $40,250. Ringa Hora, Paul Retimanu is a member of the organization. Paul is also a chairman of the board of the trust. As at balance date, the trust paid $0 to Ringa Hora. 2024, they paid $1,000. JLO Consultants. Joseph Lose is related to the CEO of the trust. As at balance date, the trust paid $79,500 to JLO Consultants. In 2024, they received $8,500. South Pacific Lawyers Association Incorporated, Artie Chand is an executive member of the association. Artie is also a board member of the trust. As at balance date, the trust paid $6,404 to South Pacific Lawyers Association Incorporated. 2024, $0. Lloyd Maole, board member of the trust. As at balance date, the trust paid $10,000 to Lloyd Maole for mentor services. Shoreline Connect Limited, Luke Meredith is director of the company. Luke is also a board member of the trust. As at balance date, the trust paid $10,000 to Shoreline Connect Limited. In 2024, $0. So I have so many questions. Why is it someone like Fele, a small business owner, very passionate about Pacific people and helping grassroots businesses faced with consequences for allegedly trying to get his own family to benefit from the trust, yet transactions were made to Mary's family and other board members? Why is the trust inconsistent with its standards? They punish service providers for conflicts of interest, but when it's the trust's own people and friends and family, they've authorized it. They allow it. Were the other board members aware of these internal transactions, and did they do their governance jobs properly overseeing these transactions? Or maybe they were left in the dark and didn't know that these were being signed off. Someone needs to answer for it and justify these financial decisions. There are 2 board members who were part of the previous board who are still sitting on the current board, and that is Dane Guttenbiel and Agnes Loretta Loheni. Were they complicit in previous financial decisions, and were they being effective governance members? After so many mistreatment of community members and internal financial spending, why is Mary still the CEO? After treating business owners like crap, sending legal threats, using intimidation tactics, and bullying to silence us, the trust lost a court case where they had to pay $52,000 in legal fees for treating employees like rubbish. When is enough enough? I don't think it's fair. And I'm going to say it plainly, because when an everyday taxpayer in New Zealand doesn't pay for their tax, the consequences are immediate and serious. You're hit with penalties, interest stacks up daily, and in the more serious cases, especially when amounts go above $50,000, you can be facing very aggressive enforcement, legal action, even criminal charges. The system moves very quickly, and it moves hard. But when concerns are raised about tax-funded organizations, about governance, professionalism, and where the public money is being used to benefit internal networks, that same level of urgency doesn't seem to exist. And that's the issue, because the real victims in all of this are Pacific business communities and families, and your everyday hardworking taxpayer who's just trying to put food on the table, pay rent, maybe afford a full tank of gas. These are the people carrying the weight. These are the people funding the system. And yet they're the ones who feel the pressure the most. Let's be real though, with these gas prices, we all might need to invest in buying a horse soon. But when questions are raised about how public money is being used, accountability should not be slow, selective, or silent. Yet here we are, serious concerns being raised, real evidence of transaction to Mary's family and other board members. Mary Lose still gets to keep her job and still get away with it. So where's the consistency? Because right now it feels like there's one standard for the public and another for those entrusted with public money. There's also another structural issue that I picked up on. The trust board members are appointed by the minister. Personally, I think this model is flawed. When political leaders select board members, it can narrow the talent pool and prioritize political alignment over capability. In practice, it often means that people who are politically aligned with the government of the day are the ones being appointed, rather than necessarily the most qualified governors. For example, we have Agnes Loheni, who has been affiliated with the National Party, who sits on the board. In another organization operating under a similar structure, Pacific Media Network, board member Ruby Shumkol, who previously served as a National Party member, she sits on that board as well. So in my opinion, when appointments are made this way, there's a real risk that board members begin aligning themselves politically instead of focusing solely on what is best for the communities that they serve. It also creates the possibility of political favor networks forming where relationships, loyalty, or electoral support can influence funding decisions or access to resources. And in the worst cases, it can lead to situations where organizations feel pressure to maintain political relationships in order to secure their funding. And that's where it happens. That's where politicians shake hands, and positioning themselves for funding, sometimes at the cost of independence, sometimes in exchange for the concerns of the community. There are other risks as well. When governance becomes politically influenced, it can discourage independent oversight, reduce accountability, and make it harder for board members to change leadership decisions. Ultimately, when public money is involved, the priority should be appointing the most capable and independent governors possible. People who are there to serve the community, not political interests. Pacific and Labour ministers have upheld these systems for years despite the repeated concerns, and that's what makes it so frustrating, because this is not a new issue. But when it comes, it's ongoing, and when it comes to real action, they're nowhere to be found. They just don't get back to us. They know how to show up during elections. They know how to speak our language. They ask for our votes, but when it comes to real development, accountability for Pacific people, they disappear. Meanwhile, all this is funded by taxpayers, everyday people who don't get the luxury of getting things wrong without consequences. It just starts to feel like there's two systems. One that is strict and unforgiving for the ordinary person, and one that is protected and flexible for those inside those institutions. I needed answers for all of the spending, if this is normalized behavior or this is acceptable behavior. So I reached out to the Pacific Business Trust and the Ministry for Pacific Peoples for answers, and I'm going to share with you their responses right after this break.
Hey, have you signed up with BLUNET yet? No? Well, let's fix that.
Head over to www.blunet.co.nz and hit Join Us today. All you need to do is fill in your name, date of birth, phone number, and a few other details. This helps us get you set up faster. We'll also need a photo of your ONT serial number and your modem. Not sure what an ONT is? Don't worry, this is what it looks like, and every house with internet has one. And make sure you have a valid ID and a utility bill or government letter to confirm your address.
When you join BLUNET, you're not just getting fast, stable internet. You're also supporting shows like Tautuana, Breaking Waves, and Sports Salanoa. Your BLUNET subscription helps us bring you more content.
If you sign up this month, you get $10 off your first 3 months. If you have any questions, call 0800 258 638. Join BLUNET today.
Hey, have you signed up with BLUNET yet? No? Well, let's fix that.
Head over to www.blunet.co.nz and hit Join Us today. All you need to do is fill in your name, date of birth, phone number, and a few other details. This helps us get you set up faster. We'll also need a photo of your ONT serial number and your modem. Not sure what an ONT is? Don't worry, this is what it looks like, and every house with internet has one. And make sure you have a valid ID and a utility bill or government letter to confirm your address.
When you join BLUNET, you're not just getting fast, stable internet. You're also supporting shows like Tautuana, Breaking Waves, and Sports Salanoa. Your BLUNET subscription helps us bring you more content.
If you sign up this month, you get $10 off your first 3 months. If you have any questions, call 0800 258 638. Join BLUNET today. So yes, I reached out to the Pacific Business Trust for some answers. I wanted to know if it is normal. It is a normal behavior for them to be transferring funds for services to their families, their friends, and their networks on the board. And this was their response. For Pacific Business Trust, Hannah, good morning. Greetings in the good name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you for asking for participation in your podcast. I invited them to come into the podcast. The annual report FYE 30th of June 25 AR 25 records financial reports and associated notes audited and signed off by the Crown Auditor. Accordingly, it is appropriate for the refreshed November and December 2025 PBT board to sign off the AR25 and deliver them to the Minister and the Ministry of Pacific Peoples. But it is not appropriate for PBT or its board to comment upon or criticize the transactions and decisions of past boards. It is not difficult to imagine how such comment or criticism could have negative effects, and they could be beyond PBT's and its board's ability to mitigate or repair. In Crown entities such as PBT, newly appointed boards and members accept the necessity and obligation to work with the given circumstances and resources. At PBT, we do so. We know the difficulties of decision-making, accountability, the inevitability of mistakes and fixes, and the requirements to do the best possible. This is not unique to the current PBT board. It was with the past board generations, and the current board thanks past boards for all the lessons and insight. This, therefore, is what is appropriate. PBT and its board in response in the spirit of edification and the Lord. Thank you, Hana Ulu. I appreciated Ulu's response. It was very respectful. And one thing stood out to me, though. He said that, it's not appropriate for them to criticize past board's decisions. I thought I'd push my luck because there are still two people on that board who were also on the previous board. That's Agnes Loheni and Dane. So I pushed my luck and I said, hey, would Agnes Loheni, because they were part of those decisions, and would Dane Guttenbill would like to comment about it? And they came back and they said, no, we don't want to. This is expected. This is what institutions do. They have processes to protect themselves because, bad public press doesn't sit right with them. But I just wanted to give the trust before I did this episode to explain themselves, and I have, and that was their response. So since PBT couldn't give me answers, I had to go somewhere else to look for answers. So since the trust is funded by the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, I decided to also send them some questions. And this is my email that I had sent them. And also, these are the questions that I was asking. Is the ministry aware of instances where trusts or affiliated entities are granting funds to each other within the Pacific Business Support ecosystem funded by government allocations? What safeguards or oversight mechanisms does the ministry have in place to ensure public funding is not being circulated between connected entities in ways that could create conflicts of interest? Is the ministry aware of any situations where board members or individuals connecting to governance structures may be financially benefiting from government-funded programs administered through the trust? What is the ministry's position on governance practices where board members or related entities may profit from funds originating from government allocations? And how does MPP ensure that the trust is legally compliant when it comes to financial reporting? Has the Pacific Business Trust been independently evaluated in the last 40 years? When I mean independently, I mean away from a government evaluation. This was their response to me. Kia ora, Hana. The Pacific Business Trust is contracted by the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, the ministry, to provide support to Pacific businesses to build their capability and expertise, as with all providers funded by the ministry. PBT is required to meet clear reporting, performance, and assurance expectations. These requirements ensure all contracted providers can carry out their functions responsibly, transparently, and with appropriate reporting, with appropriate governance. The ministry continues to work across its provider network to strengthen reporting maturity and governance practices. Regular performance monitoring is undertaken, and the ministry has no concerns regarding PBT's contractual deliverables at the time. PBT has recently published its annual report. Some of the matters raised through media queries relate to historical disclosures already set out in that report. Historical disclosures. That's a very interesting way to frame literally 2 years ago. Anyways, the refreshed PBT board, including the recently appointed chair, has been focused on strengthening governance processes and ensuring alignment with public sector expectations. The ministry's view is that these changes support continued improvement and stability rather than indicating any current issues. The Minister for Pacific People's Letter of Expectations sets out the requirements for good governance, transparency, and separation of roles, and the ministry maintains strong oversight to ensure these expectations are met. As a Schedule 4 organization under the Public Finance Act 1989, PBT is legally required to produce audited annual financial statements and regular performance reporting. These mechanisms provide transparency and assurance to both the ministry and the public. The Trust continues to meet these requirements. PBT is independently audited every year. The Auditor General is the auditor of the Trust, with recent audits undertaken by BDO Northland on their behalf. The refreshed board is expected to continue engaging constructively and proactively with all independent audit and review processes consistent with the Minister's expectation. The ministry continues to engage closely with PBT with a focus on supporting strong delivery and ensuring we are doing right by our Pacific communities. If you need anything further, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Ngā mihi. Firstly, it does not address the core concerns that I raised by any of the members of the Pacific business community, and these concerns aren't new. Similar issues relating to governance, transparency, and the use of public funding within the Pacific business support ecosystem were raised publicly more than a decade ago. Despite this, many within the sector say the same questions are continuing to surface today. The Pacific Business Trust receives public funding intended to support entrepreneurs. Because of this, it's very reasonable expectation from the community that both the trust and the ministry responsible for the funding oversight are transparent and they're accountable in how those resources are managed. The ministry's statement also focuses on compliance frameworks, reporting processes, but it does not directly respond to the specific questions raised about conflicts of interest, related entity funding, and governance practices. If these concerns have been raised repeatedly, time and time, over and over again, over a number of years, it is fair for the Pacific business community to ask whether the current oversight arrangements are sufficient and whether independent evaluation of the trust performance and governance is warranted. Ultimately, the focus should not be on protecting institutions, but on ensuring that public funding intended to support Pacific businesses, us, the people, is being used in ways that generally benefit the community that it's meant to serve. Back in 2016, Radio New Zealand was reporting on concerns about the Pacific Business Trust. After then, Labour Pacific spokesperson Su'a William Seal, he raised alarms that the trust was going to be liquidated. Now, the trust denied the outright, calling it rubbish, but at the same time admitted that they were restructuring and changing direction. It's always during these restructures, and see what I mean? Years after years, same restructures, same issues happening. We have to ask ourselves, is this system working for us? So when decisions are being made behind closed doors with no transparency and no clear communication, it creates distrust between the community and government. And the pattern is just something that's still playing out today. It's 2026. So basically, in short, the Ministry for Pacific Peoples is okay with this. And I hate to say this, I really do, because I honestly hate to say this. I'm starting to understand why there are interests from other politicians wanting to shut it down. When those interests came out in public, I publicly defended MPP. I also brought on David Seymour onto my show and I said, hey, that's unfair. You should apologize. What do you think about your comments about Ministry for Pacific Peoples? I stood up for the ministry. However, after my experiences, after hearing many other people's experiences, I don't think they really care about any of us. I think they just go tick their boxes, go into work, clock in, clock out, go home, get their money, and they're fine with it. So there you have it, guys. A trust, receiving millions in taxpayers' money every year, losing legal battles for how it treated its own staff, facing decades of back-to-back complaints from the Pacific business community. Small Pacific businesses are being excluded based on complaints that aren't even evidence. No clear mediation, no fair processes in place. Meanwhile, their CEO still gets to keep her well-paid, publicly funded job. Despite all of this going on, it just gets treated as appropriate conduct, regardless of what's actually happening on the ground. And this is exactly what I was talking about in my humble video. Do you guys remember my humble video where you guys all had a cry and had to take 2 weeks to go into therapy? This is what I was talking about. They take the money, they tick their boxes, and then they prance around in the name of culture, and they fail to care and treat the people well that they're supposed to serve. Next week, I will be seeking answers from the Honourable Shane Reti, and I'm hoping to have his response before then, because right now there's just too many unanswered questions. I need these questions answered. Where are the systems that, allow ordinary people, especially vulnerable Pacific businesses owners, to seek justice when they believe they have been treated unfairly? Where is the independent complaints process for providers who have issues with the trust? Where can someone go outside of the organization itself to have their concerns properly investigated? Because from what I can see, those pathways just don't exist. And that's the troubling part. Community voices struggle to be heard. In fact, I had to use a platform that we built. Zero government funding, just to bring these concerns to light. Meanwhile, organizations that receive millions and millions appear to face very little scrutiny, and they get away with it, even when the concerns being raised are very, very legitimate. It also makes me think about, we have so much Pacific representation in Parliament, especially in the Labour Party. We have some in the National Party as well. Over the years, why has nothing been done to strengthen the accountability systems? Ministers should be improving these structures, creating policies that protect the public just as much as they protect the institution. We have Carmel Sepuloni making comments about Christopher Luxon and his Matai title, trying to politicize Samoan cultural practices. Yet when I ask her to help the people in her backyard, it's sad. But yeah, these systems appear to protect the people inside of them. That's what I can say. Our taxpayer money funds programs with limited transparency, where organizations hold award ceremonies and public events where leadership positions itself as champions of Pacific empowerment, development, while genuine concerns from the community just struggle to be heard. I am a Christian. I love Jesus. I love Jesus very, very much. And my moral framework around justice and accountability is largely shaped by biblical principles. And I share that because I know many of us in the Pacific business community, or the Pacific community in general, we are from the same foundation of faith. The Bible doesn't leave any room for confusion when it comes to justice. Isaiah 10 verse 1-2, it warns against systems that create injustice and deprive people of what is rightfully theirs. In Proverbs 22 verse 16, it reminds us that gaining at the expense of others, especially vulnerable people, comes at a cost. And in Micah 6 verse 8, the standard is simple. You act justly, you love mercy, and you walk humbly. So when we talk about public money, about organizations, about systems that are meant to serve us, this isn't just a political issue, it's a moral one. Accountability should never be selective. It shouldn't depend on who you know or what position you hold. Transparency and fairness aren't optional. They're a responsibility. What I'm asking is for the trust to do better. I'm asking for our politicians to do better. They need to understand their role and what service means from a Pacific lens. But I also believe in grace, because the point of accountability is not to destroy people, it's to bring things back into alignment. It's to create the opportunity to do better, to correct what's been mishandled, and to rebuild trust properly. The standard is already set. The question is whether they're willing to meet it. Join us next week as I seek answers from Mr. Shane Retty and hear from other service providers who have also gone through the same thing, and they will be sharing their experiences. We'll be taking a deeper look into the financial review and speaking with others in the community. And this is just the beginning of a longer series because I wanted to offer you all the context of what's going on. And I received legal letters, and after this, please call me. I don't want to fight you guys in court. Look, time is the only asset we have. And if you want to waste your time battling in court, it's such a waste of time. Call me, let's have a talk. I'm not expecting any more legal letters, and I hope I don't get them, but if I do, I'm going to be making it all public information. But thank you everyone for joining me on my first episode, season 3 of Breaking Waves. You are all amazing. You'll see me again on Media Watch for Tautuana next Monday. This show will be on Wednesdays at around the same time, around 3 or 4 p.m. But thank you so much to our community for tuning in. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe to our channels. We appreciate your love, your support so much. And if you love Christ, then you love justice. Have a good night. Bye, everyone.
Hey, have you signed up with BLUNET yet? No? Well, let's fix that.
Head over to www.blunet.co.nz and hit Join Us today. All you need to do is fill in your name, date of birth, phone number, and a few other details. This helps us get you set up faster. We'll also need a photo of your ONT serial number and your modem. Not sure what an ONT is? Don't worry, this is what it looks like, and every house with internet has one. And make sure you have a valid ID and a utility bill or government letter to confirm your address.
When you join BLUNET, you're not just getting fast, stable internet. You're also supporting shows like Tautuana, Breaking Waves, and Sports Salanoa. Your BLUNET subscription helps us bring you more content.
If you sign up this month, you get $10 off your first 3 months. If you have any questions, call 0800 258 638. Join BLUNET today.